Let's Talk Oconee is on the air. Come and get your news that is balanced and fair. It might hurt your feelings, but the facts don't care. LTO is on the air with local news that you have to know. Just pull up a chair and get ready to go. Rannie on the right, Chris on the left, Kathy R. middle, and starring Jazzy Jeff. Let's Talk Oconee is on the air right there. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome into a Sunday night of Let's Talk Oconee. It's Jazzy Jeff, and if you notice, it's been very peaceful for the last 10 minutes in here. There's no Chris Ruin tonight. I don't know whether we should jump up and scream or holler or throw something, but Chris is under the weather. And you know that Chris is sick when I even offered to don biohazard gear to go up and set a computer up for him, and he didn't want to be on the show tonight. So we hope our little bald-headed round boy friend gets better, and he is under the weather. And Kathy has wore her. You're taking the place of Ruin tonight, right?
Yeah, I got my tinfoil hat on.
Grab your microphone over there.
Got my tinfoil hat on. Yeah.
You ready to roll, right?
Yep. Standing in solidarity. That's right.
All right. Very good. Well, tonight we have a large show, Randy Bond.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a pretty good time tonight. A lot going on this last week. And I guess I'll just get right to it.
Randy, get up in the microphone. Just
all right.
Can
you hear me?
I can hear you now. There you go.
Yeah, it's Chris being sick's affected us all.
Yeah.
I know we're just in a different element, a different environment.
It's nice to be home though, where it all started.
I know, right?
But it is nice over at the Leaders compound on the lake. But yeah, a lot going on. One of the biggest things is this lawsuit between the I guess the dozen or so folks against the county about
what was the nickname that was given to him? The
Dirty Dozen?
No, the Man
Clan.
Man Clan.
Yeah,
Man
I'm
Clan.
going to get into that. But so this is the second time in about 2 months that someone has thought about legally challenging the bonding. The first time OJSRA voted to send something to the state attorney general's office about it. And then 2 days later, their attorney's like, well, I slept on it. And maybe that's not a good idea. Well, I don't know if he slept on it or he went to breakfast with somebody that told him it wasn't a good idea. Who knows? But then fast forward a couple of weeks later, OJSRA says, hey, we're just going to turn this stuff over to the cities and let them call the governor's office or attorney general's office or whoever. Well, at the same time, it seems there's a group of concerned citizens that were feeling the same way and decided to go ahead and legally challenge this bond, which I think is good. What I don't understand, though, is why that the Journal wants to publicly scold folks for challenging this bond. It's like, what's the Journal got invested in it that makes them want to come out and like publicly scold the people that want to make sure they're doing right by our citizens. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. Yes.
So the Journal says that everybody's going to benefit from the sewer project. How? That's what I want to know. How is that going to happen? I mean, the last time that special interests worked with the government to, create something good for everybody was civil rights. And everybody fought that too, remember?
You had the Dixiecrats fighting it down here in the South.
Well, but you would think that if industry helped everybody in the county, all the people in Columbia, the country, would be benefiting from the drug trade that's happening here in South Carolina. But it's really only one or two people that are getting filthy rich down there. So I don't think that any industry that comes here is actually going to make every citizen in the county any better off.
Well, the thing is they've got quite a bit of it done. So where are these people?
Right.
Where are these
nobody's
industries?
lining up out the door to break it down to get in there. And
name names.
Again, going back in a little bit in time, the reason that the first wave of sewer had to go is because they had this grand plan for the Golden Corners Commerce Park that, they had to have sewer and water to it in order to be able to market it for a business or industry. And now we're going on, 20 something years. It seems, well, we are going on 20 something years, or 10 plus years, whatever.
Right.
Nothing's happened. It's just still sitting down there. Finally, they're down there trying to grade it off to either get it ready. But again, we're still looking at maybe 5-10 more years down the road. Look, businesses are not knocking the door. Industry is not knocking the door to come to Fairplay, South Carolina. And it goes back to the same thing that we had to start years ago, building these speculative buildings. I remember a time that we would build a building and it would stay dormant for 5 or 6 years and nobody would come. And then when they got the building, they'd have to completely tear it down or reinvent the whole wheel again. So there's nothing coming in right now.
You know, what is working is the other industrial parks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, industry is coming there. So
and they're further from from 85.
Right, yeah. So why not roll with that? That's what I don't get.
Well, ask yourself this question: what does South Carolina deem is our industry base? Where is our industry base in Oconee County? And of course, our industry base is Highway 11 at the Technology Park, where you have Tri-County Tech, you have other businesses, plus you have the Career Center. You have the one almost across 123. You have Lift Tech. You have U.S. Engine Valve. You have 123. You have 28. That is the economic corridor of Oconee County. It's not Highway. It's not I-85.
Yeah.
Well, let's instead of talking about economic development, let's talk about this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole lawsuit hinges on protecting our citizens from a tyrannical government, taxation without representation, right? Kathy, you're not going to get to use Fairplay Sewer. No. And they're going to use money that they could have used to fix the sewer around your house.
Yeah.
That's failing.
It has before. Yes.
So you're not going to get any benefit from the sewer authority for this. So that's a problem. The Journal says that the folks that are trying to stop this bond thing from going through are trying to stop a political win for the councilman during this election year. The fact is, here's the thing: he shot himself in the foot a long time ago when he came to those council meetings and did those stump speeches in the beginning before he was even on council about how he was going to be so much more conservative and how they were doing things wrong. And then he comes out and the only budget that he got to participate in was $10 million larger than all the rest of the budgets in the last 15 years.
Well, this coming budget's predicted to be $10 more million than last year.
Right. So this lawsuit is not to stop that guy from winning. This is to protect the citizens from him making another bad decision.
Yeah, I think going forward, it would be a good idea that there be a number written down, and beyond that number on a bond, that it needs to go to a referendum. I don't think that they should be able to bond, that amount without saying, "Hey guys, do y'all want to sign on for this for the next 20 years, 25 years?" This one's a 20-year bond, but I think they looked at, the possibility of 25 years, and give that to the people, to the voters. Because that is a lot of money, folks. I mean, that's a lot of money to sign up for.
Historically, Kathy, we have had the bonds like that when there was an issue, whether we're going to bond an exorbitant amount of money such as that. We have had that issue before, that we've had a bond, and I think it was over the school improvement. Now, this is going back 20 or 30 years ago. So, yes, we've had a bond. My question about the editorial and all this other stuff is that we've read the state statute or the state constitution, and I want you to get to I want you to get to that, but then I want to add something to that.
Right. So we've had bonding. That's what bonding is for: is to grow government growth. That's what you use bonding for. I don't sell personal bonds. I go get a loan from the bank if I want to make my business better, right?
Right.
But bonding, municipal bonds, that's what that is. You've got two types: revenue-based bonds and general obligation bonds. General obligation bonds are given based on an area's ability to tax their citizens because they know they'll get their money back. Revenue bonds to build like stadiums and coliseums and stuff like that are based on revenue, and you get paid back that way. But, over the last 100 or so years in South Carolina, they've had problems with bonding because people would use it incorrectly. So it's actually in the state constitution, Article 10, Section 12. And I want to read this real specifically. Counties not to incur bonded indebtedness for special services in certain areas without special tax or charge on the area or persons benefited. No law shall be enacted permitting the incurring of bonded indebtedness by any county for sewage disposal or treatment, fire protection, street lighting, garbage collection and disposal, water service, or any other service or facility benefiting only a particular geographical section of the county unless a special assessment, tax, or service charge in an amount designed to provide debt service on bonded indebtedness or revenue bonds incurred for such purposes shall be imposed upon the area or persons receiving the benefit therefrom. That was 1976 is when that was put into the Constitution and later revised in 1977. So
that was in there in 76.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's go back to the original referendum in 1976. The original referendum that was passed, quote, cannot use tax dollars for sewage. That were sewer lines or sewer plant. That was before we had the sewer plant built. The sewer plant didn't come online until 1983. They started construction in the late 70s. So the first referendum in 76 and the state constitution were aligned.
Mm-hmm.
They're identical. Okay, go ahead.
So thou shalt not. What does, when you read shall not, what does that mean?
Do not.
Do not.
Right? Absolutely.
Well, then there's some sticking point that says no law shall. Now, what's the difference in no law shall and shall not? It's the same.
It's the same. It's identical. Right? There's nothing different.
And so in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, I want to read that. Amendment 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So, shall make no law. No law shall be enacted. Pretty much the same thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we like to talk about the freedom of speech because no law shall be made to stop that. Well, no sewer should be made without the people in that area having to pay for it. The people that don't live there and won't benefit from it should not pay for it. That's as clear as it can get.
All right. So now I want to fast forward real quickly to where we're at now. In 2012, referendum number 2. And see, this was all brought up years ago by Susie Cornelius when she filed the lawsuit originally. So we had a referendum, and yes, 57 point something voted in favor of allowing tax dollars to be spent for sewer in the county. The first time that we started talking about sewer on I-85 was in 2004. But it's a direct conflict with what the Constitution is, what you just read earlier, versus the second referendum. The two conflict. Right. Now, maybe it's just me, but what's in the state regulations of the state constitution from 1977 supersedes anything over here.
Here's my question. Do you think, looking back at 2012, do you think that people believed when they voted for their tax dollars to be able to upgrade sewer, that they were voting for a sewer out on 85 where no one was? Or do you think that they were voting for, yes, please fix my leaky cul-de-sac where there is raw sewage coming out into the road and there's stuff leaking into the ditches, and please fix that? And people thought they were voting to get the broken sewer fixed.
She got it.
Well, it's very hard to find the actual question that was on the ballot.
Oh, I sent it to y'all
back then.
No, I sent it to y'all.
But she's right. But if you go to look for it, you can't really find it. I went to scvotes.gov.
No, I found it.
But what I found on scvotes.gov was the results of that question.
The results. Yes.
And if you take and break it down by precinct, the only precincts that voted yes to that were the ones that were affected by existing sewer because they had problems.
Right.
Now, if this referendum that was taken in 2012 was actually for the expansion of sewer to fair play, why is it that 12 years later we're just now deciding to do it? Why wouldn't they have started it 2 years after the referendum?
Can I say this? The original plan for sewer down there was not running lines.
Mm-hmm.
The original plan was actually to build a plant down there. That was the complete original goal, was we're going to build a sewer plant down there just to service that area. It wasn't to run the lines all the way back up to the existing sewer facility back at Conner Ross over here in Return Community. They were going to build a sewer plant. So like I said, this thing has morphed since 2004. It has morphed more times than I've probably changed my underwear.
Right. Well, I just keep going back to those editorials, and after, they said in there, once it's built, more industry will come. Well, what industry? Who's it going to be?
Name names.
Are they standing in line?
No.
I'm all for fee in lieu of. Industry wants to come to Golden Corners Commerce Park. Let them pay to fix the infrastructure they need, and then if people pile into it, they can get discounts and credits down the road. But to build it just because we think that they'll come, and then it says here, jobs will be created, we hope, by the thousands. Again, hope. And then it says high-paying technical and industrial jobs that will give people from Westminster, Walhalla, Seneca, Long Creek, Mountain Rest, and Salem a chance at a better life than the one they have today. I mean, really, what industry is going to come here to change? That's going to be life-changing.
Well, and here's the thing. What makes you think people are so unhappy with their lives? Now, we had some back and forth on our page last night, and I can tell you in my situation, and people like me in our county, we need specific services that our county doesn't have, that your sewer's not going to bring, that it's not going to help us. But as far as everyone else, what makes you think they're unhappy with their lives here? They choose to live here. Mm-hmm. People choose to move here, and a lot of times are trying to get away from hustle and bustle and big city stuff. Why do they think that people are wanting big plants and industries and high tech and that kind of thing?
I went back and pulled all of the comments in the last comprehensive plan. Mm-hmm. They're archived, and you can actually read what people are wanting. There's something like 200 and something comments. And probably out of those 200 comments, I saw close to maybe 75 to 100 of those comments wanted the same things that we have been talking about on this show. They want to feel safe, protected, have the appropriate services that they need to continue to function. Infrastructure was huge, but it was the quality of life that led people to Oconee down here. It was the mountains, the seas, we're strategically located. It wasn't about all of this development. It wasn't all about this industry. It was the quality of life we offer. And again, we've had our opportunity many years to get this all under control, but our previous councils years ago and our previous planning commission, they just kicked it down the curb. We never have had anything sustained to say, okay, let's I'm for growth, okay, but let's do it in a responsible manner. It's just been a free for all in Oconee, and we've never had checks and balances on it at all. Everybody, it's wide open.
Right, but there's a lot of argument that can be made. Industry is not going to make life-changing impacts on the county. It's not like World War III is getting ready to kick off, and they're going to bring a woolen mill in here to make blankets that is going to change the course of the future. It's not happening.
Your wife makes a great point here. We're talking about the jobs here. Lindsay's just posted, aren't there 8,000 plus jobs available in Oconee? Are there qualified people available to fill these type of jobs, these high-tech positions? And guess what?
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Well, the thing about it is, we talk about this and we look at Indeed.com, we go to SC Works and we look, and there's a tremendous amount of jobs, and it changes every day. But yeah, within 35 miles of Walhalla, there's about 7,000 some odd jobs available on Indeed. And then if you change the metrics around and you look at jobs paying over $55,000 a year, there's 1,500 jobs that are available right now. Now, you take those jobs require some type of technical skill or training, and you're not going to find any factory, any industry that's going to pay $40 an hour for unskilled labor.
Nope.
Unskilled labor is not worth it, because by the time you pay an unskilled person $40 an hour for 30 years, you could have just bought a daggone robot to do that.
Well, Luke, and I was going to mention this later in the show, but Luke brings it up now. They have a poll, Luke and Jennifer with More to the Story Vantage Point. They actually put a poll on the Facebook page, Oconee Sewer South, and they have a poll out about the sites. As of now, there's 227 votes against sewer altogether, or a special tax district, to 7 who want sewer and are willing to be taxed. Who are everyone the county touts want sewer and fair play? That's a fair question.
Well,
I mean, we're seeing it now, because yesterday and Friday you wrote the editorial to rebuttal what the Journal had, and it seems like every time something happens, the Journal's ready to pounce and attack. But yet they made an effort to come upon our page.
Right.
They wrote to us on our page and started the stuff that they've been notoriously for years doing when they want to get their way about something.
Right. Well, I guess that it was a little unfair of me to write that and then go quiet for 24 hours.
No, you didn't bother me.
But I went camping and froze to death this weekend. So I'm just getting back. And Jeff, you had told me that one of the rebuttals was, they're like, well, where was Randy Bond and Jim Mann in 2012 during this referendum?
Right.
Well, I put some thought in that on the way down here, and I was, depending on what part of 2012, I was either coming back from Iraq off of deployment, or I was going to England to serve the country in another capacity. So I wasn't here.
I was here. I was here.
But if I had been here and this had been come up, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'd be on the right. I'd be on the side of the citizens that don't want sewer.
Well, the citizens on that the second referendum, it was told to us to make improvements and fix our infrastructure, because even in the 80s and 90s, after they built
improvements,
it was existing sewer. Yeah,
sewer.
It was not about expanding.
They had people at the polls, from what I to try to explain the question, so that people would know how they wanted to vote. And as a matter of fact, I think Susie Cornelius, who had done the lawsuit, actually helped with that. And I think I even read an article. I'll have to see if I can find that and post it. So here again, it almost seems like people were misled with that vote.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because nobody in their right mind would vote to be taxed for something that they're not going to get to use.
There's politicians that are in the area that want to. Well, what about the greater good? What about the greater good?
I can see,
but
no
there
greater
is
good.
No greater good. I live in Long Creek. You know what Long Creek's gotten from the county over the last 50 years?
Maybe a couple loads of gravel, if that.
Crickets. That's what they've gotten.
I say maybe one or two loads of gravel.
I've talked to some folks, and up there. And remember when we did the Apple Festival, there was that guy that was at the booth beside us. I had a conversation with him, and he's like, we don't, people in Long Creek, they don't get involved with county government because they know they're not going to get anything from the county. So again, Long Creek is getting nothing from the county except for a higher tax rate to pay this bond off. And that's bullshit, because we're not going to see anything coming back. There's not going to be any, hey, thanks Long Creek for putting this sewer in fair play. Here's $5 million for.
And realistically, nobody from Long Creek's going to be driving out to 85 for a job, because I mean, what's the drive time for that for you guys?
45 minutes from Long Creek to 85.
Yeah, you could drive to Georgia.
But if you're gonna, you live in Long Creek,
you go to Clayton.
You go to Clayton.
Might as well drive to Gainesville. Work in a chicken house.
I mean,
or Kubota, or one of those things. If you're going to drive all the way to Fairplay,
absolutely.
And those jobs are already there.
I would say it's quicker to get to Clayton, Georgia from Long Creek than it is to get to I-85 from Oconee.
Absolutely.
Well, look, where I live, it takes 17 minutes to get to Home Depot in Clayton. It takes me 30 minutes to get to Home Depot in Seneca. So yeah, I mean, there's nowhere in Long Creek that would be beneficial to drive to Fairplay vice going somewhere in Georgia to work.
Well, at the end of the day, this lawsuit is going to prove one or two things. Number one, the county is correct and we move on. Number two, it's illegal. Then the question happens, if the courts rule, against the county, then what happens? What's the next wave? What's the next point? Are those folks in Fairplay going to be stuck paying the bill? Are they going to have to create a special tax district for Fairplay?
Well,
we already do it.
Ask for it, though.
Well, that's that.
And there's 700 people out there. How are 700 people going to pay off millions of dollars for something they didn't ask for?
But here's the thing: special tax districts work. Look at Kiwi Key over there; they've got their own fire, and they pay for it.
Well, Corinth Shiloh has got the petitions already signed. Right. They've got enough, and I think that's going to be a ballot question.
And they should have.
Maybe they should just send the bill to Mr. McMaster, because he's the one that wanted it so badly.
Well, at the end, somebody's got to pay for this. Is the county taxpayer going to be stuck?
What happened to the grant that they have?
They used the grant for phase 1 and 2.
And but here's the thing about that, Jeff. They used grant money for phase 1 and 2 of Sewer South. Why didn't they just let phase 1 and 2 play out? And now that you got sewer down there, that probably spurs industry on to say, hey, yeah, sewer, that's all we've been waiting for to move in here. And it's down there and it's close.
Then run 3, the phase 3.
Then it would be on. No, there doesn't need to be a 3 and 4. The company says, yes, we want to be here. We want to do this.
But why?
And for fee and lieu, just like
but
that.
We had the money already. We didn't have to take a bond.
$25 million was taken for absolutely no reason at all.
Exactly. We didn't have any reason to take this bond.
None.
We had the money
flush
with cash. We had the money in the rainy day fund to pay for everything already ready to roll. Then we could have put that money back in subsequent years to replace what we spent. They did it before, when the county got invested in broadband, and when we got the contract, or the state federal government to run Oconee Focus. Does everybody remember the Oconee Focus project?
No,
they took money out of the rainy day fund to match the federal grant that the county needed to run fiber optics throughout the county. It was like $9 million. Well, the county just got through, or getting ready to pay that back. And we really didn't go in any debt. We didn't have a bond of $25 million that's going to cost us $43 million at the end of this thing. And what is the deal about this early payment? We got chastised for something in the paper.
They said that
this was Amanda Brock.
Pay it back. And I swear someone asked about returning the money, and she said no, that was not a possibility, that the leftovers would be used for other capital projects.
Right.
Well, in an email that she wrote back as Luke, and I'll credit Luke with this, Luke sent a bunch of questions. She talks about that in that email, that she says, quote, it would be for other projects.
Right. I mean,
and they've got it set up.
That in part one of the what is it, January 23rd meeting.
They can't do it. Okay, David, here it is. David Dial, and David would know. David said can't pay anything back until 2034.
There you go.
But on the thing of the payback breakdown that she put up on that spreadsheet, it was full payment 2043 was $43 million.
Right. And see, they took a payment that would pay off the first 2 years of interest, which again, they say it's really good idea, right?
Right.
But the problem with that is it's like you go down to a payday loan place and you give them your car title and they give you a loan. Well, then they also say, hey, since you took this loan, we're going to give you this big screen TV. That's your premium, right? You're paying for that TV too.
Right.
And they give you that premium. So you sign that little extra bit that says we're not paying this thing off early because these investors this is an investment for them.
They want their money. They want all the money they can get.
They break that bond up into these things called tranches, and one is the principal and one is the interest. And the guy that buys the interest off of the bond, that's it. That he gives his money, and what he gets back is the interest paid in. Well, the other guy gets the principal back, or they get both. But nobody that buys that bond wants it to be paid off early because they want the interest. That's how business.
They would get cut out of the money. That's how
they're making their money. So yeah, but she said other capital projects. Now,
but really, Kathy, this moment, we still don't know what it's going to use to be paid for.
No,
we still don't have that.
It says, in different places that it was first mentioned in September. Because I had to ask Luke, I was like, because I'm pretty sure it was your question that spurned those answers to begin with. But September 5th was the first time that, they were answering it. But nobody has identified what those what those projects are. But yeah, other projects. Right. So,
but probably the only way we'd get other projects that benefit the rest of the county is from this lawsuit. When this lawsuit goes to court and it gets appealed and it gets appealed and it gets appealed, and finally the Supreme Court says, "Hey, you can't do this. You broke the Constitution." They're going to have to use that $25 million to benefit all the citizens of Oconee County.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're going to go back and look at 2012. And say that our referendum wasn't.
Well,
I've said that. That's the same question I have because again, we've read what it says, and if you go back and you put the 2012, you put it side by side. This right here is the supreme. Anything the state. This is the law. This here is an advisory referendum, yes or no. They take it under advisement, so they passed it. It conflicts with each other.
The problem is to change the Constitution. The legislation has to pass that amendment to the Constitution, and the governor has to sign it.
Right.
A 50% majority vote in Oconee County can't change the Constitution for Oconee County.
Right.
It is what it is. So, back to the debt service part of this. We had bonds. The county had some bonds that were paying for other things that were getting ready to be paid off.
Mm-hmm.
And the council chairman and his folks are like, well, it's not really going to be that big a hit to our pocketbook because eventually the debt that we did have is going to fall off, and so it'll be just like nothing had happened. Well, it would have been really nice that debt had fallen off and we had this extra cash that you could lower the millage, or you could build community centers, or you could fix the roads or something like that with. Instead, we're going to keep on paying for this shit pipe to nowhere. And hopefully the Man Clan and his dirty dozen are going to stop that from happening and save the citizens of Oconee County a considerable amount of money.
Why do you think that the chairman himself and everybody around that organization, why do you think they're on the attack mode about this?
Because they're scared. They know that they got caught. They know what they did was.
But then let me ask this question hypothetically here. Okay, so they executed it. They went to New York. Who was a part of that trip to New York? There was two other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who was the one that is responsible for making sure that the county is legal in any of their fairs?
But you would think that'd be the county attorney.
Okay. Then did the county attorney go to work for the law offices that went to New York to help get the bond?
No, that's not correct, Jim.
It's not.
He did not go to work for them. He accepted a
partnership,
a piece of their business. That's not just working for them. That's a big deal.
That's becoming them.
They said, here, you did such a great job for us. Here's a third of our business. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
How much is a partnership worth these days?
He bought in
$43 million. That's what it costs the taxpayers.
Yep.
So
you go help your county that you're supposed to be legally representing, and then you take a fly trip up there. The taxpayers pay for it. They stay in one of those little Motel 6s, and then you come back, and then the county's got cash. We're flush with cash. Then your attorney that is supposed to be representing you becomes a partner.
Did he just call him an attorney?
Attorney.
A partner in the law firm of the firm who helped Oconee County get the bond in the first place.
I mean, it wasn't
that doesn't seem wrong or legal. That doesn't seem wrong at all.
Well, and since he's an attorney and he was dealing with attorneys, I'm sure that it's legal. But just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
It wasn't even like you waited like a year until it all come out. It was like, hey, we're back from New York. I quit. I got, I'm out of here. Get me some of these GQ glasses.
When they come back, they came back in September, and then he announced his resignation in December.
It wasn't even that. No.
Yeah, I mean, it was earlier than that.
It was quick.
It was quick.
It didn't even give.
Why can't we get any of those kind of jobs like that?
Didn't even get time for the ink to dry on the bond, and he's like, man, I'm out of here.
Candace makes a good question here. How much do we know how much money the law firm made off this deal?
Yeah, it was like $2.5 million, because that was how much it cost to fund to do the part of the bond. Yeah, it was a lot of money.
David Dow checks in real quickly here on our show here tonight. Remember, all the appeals by the county will cost the taxpayer. The complaint is self-funded by plaintiffs or volunteers that make a tax-deductible donation to scpif.org. That's right. scpif.org. Now, I want to add something to this. They were throwing up, this lawsuit's going to cost the county taxpayer, blah, blah, blah. Is it
going to cost them $43 million?
But wait a minute. Didn't we have somebody in that organization that filed a lawsuit that cost the county more money too? Do you not remember the school district of Oconee County versus or Perry Smith versus the school district of Oconee County? And did that not take up taxpayer dollars?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. But let's talk about the lawsuits that Chairman Durham found himself in with SLED in the state attorney general office that took him out from being able to represent District 2 for almost a year. Talk about the delay. There's nothing more expensive than a missed opportunity. And every moment that he wasn't able to represent District 2, that cost the taxpayers of District 2 and the whole county a bunch of money, because they could have acted on a whole lot of other things. But you want to talk about wasting taxpayer money, and he sat there on that for a year instead of just giving up the seat, letting somebody else come in during a special election and move the county forward. So when he talks about costing taxpayers money and delaying things in the county because of lawsuits, that's like the pot calling the kettle, Brittany.
Makes sense to me. All right, it's 7:40. Do we have any more we want to add? Because we still have a big interview tonight here on the show.
I wanted to bring up what he said when he attacked them.
Go ahead.
When he was talking about the misogyny, if y'all caught it or not, when he was screeching about the two women candidates. Did y'all catch that? If you didn't catch it, did your wives catch it when he said?
No, I caught it.
When he said that the the ladies would be voting for more shopping centers. Did you catch that? Like student housing and more shopping. Was it just me that heard that more?
No, it was. I think he posted
the
that.
The nerve, man, the nerve. It reminded me of y'all seen Nutty Professor where they was like, women be shopping. I mean, you cannot stop a woman from shopping. I mean, why didn't he just stand up and do a comedy routine? I mean, what's wrong with that guy?
Well, it's obvious. It's apparent if you read a lot of his stuff.
How can any
He hates women. No. He hates women, period. He has a woman problem.
Woman vote for him? I mean, for real. How could any woman vote for him?
I just love the snake with India. That right there was one of the greatest posts that we've ever done on LTO.
Well, I tell you what, if she can handle an old rattlesnake, she can handle these old politicians in Oconee County.
Well, I got a shovel she can use to take care of it.
I got a hoe.
But well, they've had some of them too. That's why they got in most of their trouble.
My hoe's named Brittany.
But anyway, I hope that after we come back from a break,
we're just gonna go in. We're way behind.
After this interview, though,
yeah,
we'll talk about that a little bit. But I want to talk with Kathy and you about this student housing and the attacks that the chairman made against those ladies, because I don't think he fully understands the true benefit of those apartments and what they actually do for the community. And I'd like to talk about that.
Okay. All right. We will come right back. Randy, you want to go ahead and set this interview into play?
So a couple of weeks ago,
last week, earlier this past week.
Right. But going back, it was a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Seals went to the planning commission and he has a problem in his neighborhood. Well, the OCC and a lot of their cronies, instead of listening to hear what he had to say about the dangerousness of this guy shooting in a high density neighborhood, they just went on the attack about the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Well, the Second Amendment says you can keep and bear arms.
Right.
It doesn't say you can keep and shoot arms.
Right.
Anywhere you want to. So it piqued my curiosity, and I called Jeff up and I said, "Hey, can I come over and you just show me what's going on, and maybe we can have a little talk about it?" And he agreed. And I called up Richard Belmore because Richard, he's got a whole lot of knowledge about guns and gun safety. He just retired from being a sled instructor, and he taught CWP, and he taught a lot of basic marksmanship courses and stuff like that. And so I really had two subject matter experts, the homeowner and a CWP instructor there to talk with about that. And I think that this interview was really good, and hopefully there'll be more follow-up interviews that kind of keep getting the word out there until the county decides to do something about these high density neighborhoods and the fact that there's no rules in this wild west situation.
Yep.
This is Randy Bond with Let's Talk Oconee, and today I'm doing a special interview with Jeff Seals out here on his back porch. I brought with me Richard Belmore, who's an expert in the field of gun safety. And reason we're here today, a couple weeks ago, Jeff, you came to the County Planning Commission, and you said that you had a problem in your neighborhood with somebody shooting that you felt was dangerous, and you'd been trying to get somebody to do something about it. You talked to the sheriff several times. Sheriff's deputies have been out here, but you didn't feel that anything was being done. Is that it? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Well, that's correct. Like I say, like Randy said, we sit out here, and he shoots. His target is set up 40 yards from my back deck, and where he stands and shoots from the corner of our house is 84 yards. And he's shooting to what he calls a berm that is not really a berm, and there's no proper backstop, and he's shooting in the direction of about 12 different homes, including boats passing up and down the lake. And like Randy said, we've had deputies out here several times, and there is no real county ordinance against the shooting of firearms in Oconee County. And when I went to the Planning Commission, which I was invited, by the way, which, as everyone knows, it was a setup against India Lancaster, and India had no idea that I was doing any of that. But David Nix and Mickey Haney, Matt Dermott all used that as a setup to try to say she's a liberal, a Democrat, posing as a Republican.
Well, I think we got to consider the source with those folks. They're going to use anything they can to make their opponents look bad, but really the issue you have is serious. It's not a Second Amendment issue. It's a public safety issue, and in a small community like yours, where there's 12 different houses within 100 yards of each other in any direction, there's no safe place to be shooting here, and because it is outside of the city limits, there are no rules that help you engage as a neighbor.
That's true.
So, Richard, you've been here for a little bit and got a kind of a tour. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Absolutely, it is not a safe place to shoot. Absolutely not. Looking at the berm, the angle of the berm that a projectile could deflect upon hitting something solid such as a rock, and a ricochet is something that is not predictable. You can have the most accurate firearm in the world. You cannot predict the direction of a ricochet or a splatter ricochet, which means that the bullet fragments and pieces go every which way. It's also not safe for the occupants of this home to be outdoors when that individual is engaged in live fire. I have an article here from the American Speech Language Hearing Association describing what gunshots do just for the occasional shooter, how much it damages their hearing if they don't wear hearing protection. Now, I retired after 27 years of being an instructor with SLED, the NRA, and I have permanent hearing loss even though I wore hearing protection while I shot. And I'm going to describe the hearing loss, what happens when you shoot a firearm. It's exactly what I have. Now, it took me 27 years of being behind headphones to develop that problem, but an average person being exposed to that high decibel, it wouldn't take them long before they start having a ring that doesn't want to go away. So according to this organization, any noise greater than 140 decibel is damaging to your hearing. Most firearms exceed 140 decibel. Most rifles exceed 175 decibels. Now, the distance between this deck and that house, there's not enough space for that sound to dissipate. Now here's what happens to a person who shoots frequently, what they call a recreational shooter. People who use firearms are more likely to develop hearing loss than those who do not. Firearm users tend to have a high frequency permanent hearing loss, which means they may have trouble hearing speech sounds like S, TH, V, or other high-pitched sounds. That's exactly what I was diagnosed with several years ago. The left ear, right-handed shooters, often suffers the most damage because that's the side closest to the breech. Right. The right ear, as you can see, I'm shooting a rifle, the right ear is in the blockage of the sound. So this ear will get more damage than the right ear. However, if you are out here without hearing protection, that phenomenon can happen significantly sooner, especially when you're into the noise decibels of 180 or higher.
But who would want to sit on their porch wearing earmuffs because their neighbor's shooting at their house?
Exactly. Nobody. And that's what I was trying to do with the planning commission, is just give them something to go on to try to get some kind of common sense ordinance, not a gun law, a common sense ordinance to where you couldn't discharge a firearm within, say, 100 yards of a residence, or have a target impacting within 100 yards of a residence. But they took that and ran when I showed them Richland County's code, which was 300 yards.
But the problem is Richland County is the only county in South Carolina that's decided to do something about these irresponsible gun owners. I don't, everybody wants to think that common sense gun ownership is a bad word, but it's really not common sense. It's irresponsible gun ownership, and that's what the issue here is. I love the Second Amendment. I love my right to bear arms, and I feel like that I should be able to own anything that the government owns. But it doesn't mean if I own Stinger missiles, I ought to be able to launch them off my porch in the middle of downtown. That's irresponsible. And that's what I think that's happening here. So how many times have deputies been out here, and what has been their reaction when they've been here?
It's been 8 times or more.
Wow.
And it wasn't just us calling, it was the neighbors on the other side of the creek, neighbors down on the point of the lake, and neighbors in our neighborhood.
Now, when you say down on the point of the lake, behind where he shoots, the next thing back there is the lake. So you could be out there crappie fishing and get shot in the head and not know where it comes from.
True.
That's dangerous.
Yes, and you can see across the lake and see the subdivision across the lake from where he's standing and shooting.
So there's more houses across the water.
True.
And so not just the 12 houses here and the dog pet grooming place across the road, but in all directions from here there's people.
True.
That if you live in Mountain Rest where I do, and everybody's got 12 acres and they're shooting into the national forest and you've got a berm, it's okay to shoot. But it's still not okay to be obnoxious with what you're doing, because it gets old if you're shooting for 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday when everybody else in the neighborhood's trying to barbecue.
True. And I do not have a problem with somebody shooting on their property. They just have to have common sense, because anywhere you stand here and point a firearm, your muzzle is pointed at home, unless you're shooting across Highway 188.
Well, that's not good.
No. I mean, catch a motorist or a school bus coming by. And if I ain't mistaken, there was a target shooter in Gaffney just a couple of weeks ago shot somebody. Did they not?
Yeah, it's happening all around us all the time. So what else do you got for us, Richard?
You said there were 8 different times that the officers came out here? 8 or more.
I forget the exact name.
That's the ones that you called, or is that accumulated?
That's the ones we called and our neighbors.
Okay, so this is an accumulation of...
Here's the funny thing. He thinks it's okay. They think it's okay for them to create the loud noise from the muzzle blast, but they call the law on somebody over here on the property across from our home riding a 4-stroke dirt bike. Said it's keeping their kids awake, but it's okay to fire a firearm.
They would probably call if you had a barking dog too.
Yes.
A barking dog is not quite.
I'm going to ask a question. This is Jazzy Jeff off camera. We want to preference this. This is not about gun control.
True.
This is all about gun safety. There is a big difference between gun control and gun safety. Don't be fooled by what the other side is saying. They're claiming that anything you talk about guns is gun control, and that's just not true. It is not safe to shoot a firearm within less than 200 feet beside another home. You can reach out and you can see the other home, and on top of that, if you take a look at the video that we're going to show shortly before the interview is over, you're going to see where they're shooting into. There is no protective area. There's no berm whatsoever. So if anything is on the other side, there could be hit easily. Bullets do travel. But again, this is not gun control. It is gun safety, keeping people safe. It's not about telling what they can do and what they can't do. It's all about gun safety. And we need to make sure that we continue to say that, because the other side is trying to spin it as it's gun control, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, you're right, Jeff. And even in this neighborhood here, if it was a one-off, there's a possum in the trash, or there's a rabid raccoon in the backyard, and somebody's reached out and took care of that, nobody would say anything. But 3 hours of constant gunfire into the backyard in this neighborhood, that wears thin on everybody really quick.
I spent 27 years as a firearms instructor for the NRA and also for SLED. I just retired in September of 2023. Anybody who's taken a concealed weapons safety course that the state has prescribed will know that we spend an awful lot of time, probably the majority of the time when we talk about state law, on the 4 cardinal rules of firearm safety. Rule number 4 is be sure of your target and what is beyond. This does not meet rule number 4.
Rule number 2 is make sure you have a proper backstop and stuff. Make sure of your the direction of your muzzle.
Well, that's not a different set of. If you look at the cardinal rules of firearm safety, there are actually 4.
Yeah, you got. And assume every weapon is loaded.
Treat, never, keep.
Muzzle point in safe direction.
Safe direction.
Be sure you target what is beyond, and never place your finger on the trigger till you're ready to fire.
That does not constitute a safe direction either.
No.
So 3 out of the 4 cardinal rules of gun safety are not being upheld when this guy comes outside.
Right.
And you know, some people are like, we could have a good step down this path toward gun safety if everybody, every student in the school at some point took hunter safety. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that a hunter safety course is a good course, and I tend to agree. Mm-hmm. One of the things about it, though, is SLED wants $30 per student for it. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure that if one of the agriculture teachers or somebody that likes to shoot at school went and got certified as an instructor, the price would significantly change because they're not paying that teacher twice. I think that'd be a good idea. Teaching our youth about guns and about weapons would alleviate a lot of the irresponsibility that we face.
Absolutely. And somewhere around the year 2010, the NRA launched a program to bring gun safety classes into schools. They were looking for certified shooting ranges to hold these events. So I'm in Oconee County. My range is certified by the NRA and by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. So we signed up. Several counties throughout the upstate signed on to it. Oconee County School District said no.
Really?
Said no.
Why?
They didn't give us a conclusive answer.
Well, I think that's worth a follow-up.
But our neighboring county signed on.
Right. Well,
Pickens County signed on, but Oconee did not.
So we don't want to take a whole lot of your day, Jeff. But is there anything else you'd like to say before we take off?
No, I mean, like Jeff was saying, it's not about the Second Amendment. It's about gun safety.
Right.
It's a totally different ordinance. I mean, we're just trying to. We've got people moving here from California, New Jersey, Chicago, New York that has never ever been able to own a firearm, and so they get down here and they say, "Well, I own an acre, half acre of land. I can own a gun now, so I'm gonna go in my yard and shoot it." And they've never had any training. And that's what I'm advocate for, is safety. I mean, and I think I've talked to some people, and since the constitutional carry has come about, they're working somehow in some way to get safety courses now with the CEWP people to teach.
Yeah, the state is offering free classes in every county at some specific date.
They haven't got the funding for that yet, I understand. But it's coming in the future.
They're probably going to be using the DNR. DNR has been doing, very recently, they call it a basic safety course, and they call it a pre-CWP course for people who came from somewhere else where firearm ownership was restrictive or prohibited. They come to a state where we have a very generous allowance for firearms and a generous acceptance of firearms, but those people are just as dangerous as people who have never driven a car, and you hand them a set of keys. They're more dangerous, or as dangerous as the people who can't read our language and went out in a bilingual state, and you give them a set of keys. They don't know what the word speed limit means necessarily, or stop. I went to Canada one time. I didn't know what arrête meant. I went through 3 of them.
Well, but like I said, we do need to wrap it up. This has not been about the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. This is about public safety. This is about being nice to your neighbors. This is about being able to get along with the folks in your neighborhood. And with more and more people moving in here from more and more different places, we're going to have more and more conflict. And unless the county council does act to create a mechanism to communicate to the public what needs to happen, this is going to become more and more commonplace, and eventually somebody's going to get hurt. And that's why we're excited to make sure that we're bringing this to the council. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Jeff's going to take some video of the property so we can use that, and we'll move on. So Jeff, we're done. We good?
Yep.
All right. Well, first thing I want to do is say thank you to Jeff Seals and his wife for allowing us to come out there and do the interview. And the second thing, I want to say thank you to Richard. He added so much value to that conversation. And I think as time moves forward, there's a lot more conversation needs to be had about gun safety in these high density neighborhoods. But that's going to lead into more and more issues in these high density neighborhoods. But I just don't know what is the right step for building the 1,000 unit subdivisions and not having an HOA that has ordinances or some sort of rules that people can follow. And that's what happens when you build them out here in the country and say no HOA. Well, there's no rules and there's no laws. So we have all this conflict. And it's definitely an unsafe situation out there. I feel for those folks. And I hope the county will listen and do something to help them out.
Well, I'm already saying I don't believe it's going to happen because they couldn't even formulate what they wanted to do in the last planning commission. I mean, if it took them 3 years to get a junkyard ordinance, God help us getting some sort of development standards.
Well, I've got plenty of time to keep talking.
It's kind of on the state too, because the way they wrote this law and passed this, it's thrown everything back onto counties and municipalities to define how people will be allowed to do this, and even neighborhoods, like you said, HOAs and that kind of thing. And to me, and here again, people like to say stuff, but I believe in the Second Amendment. Just don't let the liberal fool you. There are things that will bite and eat you around here, not to mention scary people. So the thing is you're not going to know when you're playing Yosemite Sam here, and you're not going to know from place to place where you're going what the rules are. Because people are going to have to make their own rules, whether it's the neighborhood, whether it's the municipality, whether it's the county. So there's 46 counties and Lord knows how many municipalities and different districts and neighborhoods. You're going to have to study and know where you're visiting to know what you can do. And then each business, because of course State House doesn't want you to carry there. I thought that was kind of ironic. They're cool with you carrying everywhere else, but you can't carry there.
Well, and you bring that up, and I've heard this been said a couple of times. The county council chairman wants to be pounding his opponent about the Second Amendment, but the county council chairman has not done a darn thing about removing restrictions in the county offices about being able to carry weapons in there. Why not? If you're so love Second Amendment, then why haven't you revoked that and say you bring your guns into the next council meeting? Right. There's reasons that guns don't belong in places.
Yeah.
And that's just all there's to it.
I want to add to this, and Sean has posted this, and I was going to bring this up in tonight's show. We've talked about this previously with the gun range up in Salem. That gun range apparently is no more. The property has been sold.
Right.
Scott Durham, who owned the property along with Matt and his son, they sold the property, I believe it was earlier this past week. And according to the new owners, that they're going to take the property in a different direction. My thoughts and hopes are that they'll put a 26-acre mobile home park on it with about 3 different goats and some chickens and live life to the fullest.
Wow. Well, you never know what's going to happen, but again, I feel like that situation shouldn't have happened.
Nope.
Between the gun range owner and its neighbors, if the county would have been in a situation to protect all its citizens from that thing happening. And it doesn't take much, just a few ordinances to make sure that the county makes good decisions. And that's what happened. The county was not able to make a decision because there was no precedent for it, and it caused a lot of trouble.
It did.
But I'm glad that situation's over for everybody, and I really hope that it's not a transgender naked pickleball, resort going in there. But if it is, me and Chris will be up there to do a segment.
I figured you would. Are you ready, Randy Vaughn?
Sure. What you got?
There's a reason I'm playing the People's Court theme.
Judge Wapner.
Yeah, good old Judge Wapner. Well, Thursday night was the Republican get-together. The Republican Party had their meeting Thursday night, and, according to some, I thought we were going to have a hanging by fire in the midnight hour. Well, Randy, would you like to have a first shot at this story here?
I don't know where to start.
Well, I can make it easy for you. Apparently, they want to try, hang, and convict Luke and Jennifer Moore.
Well, hold on a minute. Before we got into that, it was a really, really good meeting. Everything
was going great.
Everything was going well. Then then we had a resolution that can come up. This resolution comes up just about every year in the Oconee County Republican Party. The marijuana is bad bill.
Yeah.
And it's this resolution always comes up. It's the third time I've seen it, and third time that, I think that actually we've approved it at least one out of 3 times that, medical marijuana shouldn't be available. But this time we had a guest speaker, and she was from down in Charleston, and she had a child that had severe epilepsy, and she was saying that her daughter would have 800 to 1,000 seizures a day without some sort of medication. But most of the pharmaceutical grade medication was causing all these other issues for her.
Right.
And they've even taken her as far as Maine for a period of time so that she could have access to medical marijuana, which actually works for her. There was a lot of folks talked about that. And there's different sides of the issue there because, marijuana is a gateway drug in some people's mind. Another, I think it was maybe Josh Owens that challenged the idea that the FDA was worth the shit. I don't remember quite exactly what he said.
Something involves spam.
But yeah, he said that, you can't trust anything the FDA says. And the FDA doesn't want medical marijuana because, they can't regulate it well. But if they would regulate it, then everybody would know what they're getting. So anyways, that happened, and the resolution failed. We're not going to send a resolution to the State House saying we're against the Compassionate Care Act because, most people in the room are not against it.
County council meetings would be a lot more civil if we had a more Willie Nelson approach.
They would.
So then we get down there to the new business and old business. We'll get to old business. And Mickey Haney, he brings up the fact that there was supposed to be an investigation into Luke and Jennifer Moore and where they lived. Well, the fact of the matter is, where that came up was we were accepting resignations, and there were some changes in leadership, and so it was to be read that they had resigned from leadership positions in the party. Well, Mickey said he wanted to know what the investigation found and this, that, and the other. Well, there was no investigation because they resigned at the same meeting that Mickey wanted to wanted to have this. Well, you don't necessarily need to investigate somebody.
Well, it started with David Nix. David Nix was the one that made the motion at the previous meeting when this was all discussed about to have an investigation about where they actually lived.
But the conversation swiftly turned from an investigation to wanting to have a tribunal or a trial or something.
I mean, I thought literally they were goners. I thought we were going to hang them at midnight.
Well, was it a lynch mob that was going after them? Were we going to use a guillotine, a gallows, or
gas chamber, the electric chair?
I mean, there's so many options in Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, apparently
for what you can do to
somebody. Do
y'all
have something on the door banning firearms? I mean, it would
probably
been
be interesting to know. I didn't see
maybe
none.
a firing squad would have been in order. I don't know.
But the whole thing evolves around the fact that Luke and Jennifer had a property that they were living in, and this big old subdivision is planned to go in beside them, and they don't want to live beside a big old subdivision, so they sold that.
Imagine
property,
that.
and they bought some property in the mountain, in the mountains, and they're moving. So, but there's a period of time when you're still have obligations for the people in the area that you want to be there for, you represent them, and a period of time from the time you go under contract for the house, sell the house, and move to changing your voter registration. Well, the OCC extremist element in the OCRP are trying to find out exactly where they move, what they're doing. I mean, probably flying drones and stuff.
That's called stalking.
But they wanted to really, what it is when Luke and Jennifer made a post on Facebook a couple months ago that they were moving to the mountains and probably going to run for some sort of public office. The OCC now knows that they've moved to Mountain Rest and are probably gearing up to challenge Durham at some point. Now that scares them because they know that Luke is a much smarter guy than Matt, and Luke's got a bigger following than Matt, and they know that they're really scared of India. But in 4 years, when Matt tries to come back and unseat India, they're going to have to deal with Luke too. So they're scared, and I can get it. But there's no reason to have a Republican military style tribunal over it.
Well, that's what they wanted.
That's just the weirdest thing.
But that ain't all.
But that's extreme. That's extremist stuff.
Well, I mean, now let's move forward towards the end of the meeting. What did David Nix do?
Oh, he tried to challenge the fact that Jeff had been voted in as District 3 district representative.
District director.
Let me just point out, because I talked to people from, they don't do this in other parties, right? Well, this weird, I mean, forgive my language, this weird ass stuff does not go on in other parties.
Well, but this is the craziest, the best part of
it doesn't happen. Of this thing. And y'all feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this does not happen in other parties. They're not doing this stuff. Y'all are the only people that are having this problem, and it's because y'all got those guys still in there.
Yeah.
Well,
but what was the funniest thing, Rannie?
So the funniest part was during this District 3 selection.
Yeah.
David Nix wanted to challenge that. Now, he ain't even part of District 3.
Nope.
But he wanted to challenge that, saying that not everybody in District 3 was notified that there was an election going on. Well, so he walked over to Mr. John Wagner, who orchestrated the
He was the one.
He's the one that put together the vote for District 3.
Yep.
And he said, I sent it out to everybody in District 3. And, everybody came back.
I didn't get it.
Well, here's the thing. Don Mize raised his hand. I didn't get it. Well,
Don
Mize is not even eligible to have a leadership position in the Republican Party because he's on the county council. If that wasn't the case,
to be included.
Right. Well, so the thing about it is,
if he wants to resign, I will resign my position as District 3 director, and he can resign council, and I will let him have District 3 for the Republican Party, and then I'll go run for the council seat. I think that's a fair trade.
Right.
That's fair trade, right?
Hey, okay. The county would probably be better off the whole way around.
I know we would.
But the thing about it is he wants to make it stink because he didn't get an opportunity to run against you a second time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really think he would have won a second time against you at anything?
Mm-mm.
No, I don't think so. And I think,
but just remember, he came up and was acting as what was it, by proxy and EC, and he was already living in Cross Creek.
Well, again,
so
I don't want to get into having another tribunal or a trial or anything like that.
Oh, come on, Randy. It was fun.
We'll trust that he was still living in that one house at the time that he said that he was. I will trust that. But for him to say, hey, I want to be on the county council and I want to have a leadership position in the party, is one, that would have been quickly challenged by anybody that knows the state and local rules. So it wouldn't have even mattered. So that was very interesting. And I think that coming up, in the next meeting,
there's nothing like law and order in Oconee.
Right. But hopefully somebody brings a design build plan for a gallows to the next Republican meeting so we can go ahead and get started.
All right, briefly, do we have anything else? Because it's about time to wrap up the show. First, I want to let folks know that next week we're off. No show next week. I will be hiding Easter nuggets. Now, Easter nuggets is these things my dog does in the backyard. I'm going to put them in little eggs and we're going to go hide them.
No, that sounds like a good idea.
It is a great idea. Randy, what you got for us before we get out of here?
I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to have engaged the community this week with Jeff and Richard.
Yep.
And I appreciate all our listeners and the folks who follow us on Facebook that have been so willing to engage with us and give us more to talk about. And I want to encourage them to keep it up because we're gonna start ramping it up, and hopefully soon we might even hit legitimate online newspaper status and start, having some really, really good content. I've been talking to some folks. We'll see what happens.
And maybe we should open up a place out on 85.
Get our own printing press.
I bet we could get the state to give us money for it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a dinger. Anyway, listen, I appreciate y'all. I hope that you all have a great Easter, and for everybody out there.
Hey, Gladys, I just want to shout out to Gladys. Thanks so much for taking care of our friend Chris.
Yes.
I hope you feel better soon.
And you can take the Chinese handcuffs off of him now and let him go ahead and comment all he wants the rest of the night.
All right. Roger says it best. Good show. A bit quiet. All right, Randy, Kathy, thank you so much. And again, we appreciate you joining us tonight. As always, the show is archived on our website, letstalkoconeesc.com. As always, check out our Facebook page. You never know what you'll find or see on Let's Talk Oconee. Check out the main page and then be a part of the group because there's lots of information in there too. For Randy, Kathy, Chris Ruin, who is under the weather, I'm Jazzy Jeff. Have a great Saturday or Sunday evening, and we'll see you week after next.
Don't forget to drink your Herbamate.